From the banks of the Colorado River in Lake Mead to the homes and businesses in Southern Nevada, welcome to Water Smarts, the podcast pumping from the heart of Las Vegas, where we engage with the experts who keep the water flowing throughout Southern Nevada. I'm Bronson Mack.
And I'm Crystal Zuelke. From how we treat it, deliver it, use it, protect it, and conserve it, the Water Smarts podcast is all about water in Southern Nevada. We hope to make you a little smarter about the one thing that keeps us all connected: water.
Hey, Crystal. How you doing today?
I'm good, Bronson.
Yeah.
It's good to see you in person. And
I know.
Not over the computer.
I know. We always do this over the computer. We're actually in a different spot today. We're out at the River Mountains Water Treatment Facility. This is one of two water treatment facilities that are operated by the Southern Nevada Water Authority. All of the water that gets delivered throughout the valley comes through either this facility or Alfred Merritt Smith, gets treated to drinking water standards and then delivered out through the community. And while this is definitely water quality related, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different today.
And something that probably a lot of people don't know that we do as an organization. We have water sommeliers.
What is that?
Like, you know, when you go to a restaurant and somebody comes over and they talk to you about wine and they're an expert and make recommendations, well, we have water experts.
Isn't that crazy?
It's cool.
You wouldn't even think that, look, I've done beer tasting, I've done wine tasting, but Today we're going to do a little water tasting.
Yes.
And this water tasting that we're going to do today has a direct connection to our water treatment process and making sure that the water that is getting delivered is meeting all of the necessary standards. So this happens every week here at the River Mountains Water Treatment Facility, and we're actually joined with a panel of water quality experts to taste and smell this water and go through this flavor profile panel. So here we have some of the smartest people that I know within our organization, and joining us first, Carol Lane, and Carol is a water quality monitoring supervisor. Carol, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Bronson.
Also joining us is Kai Chung. Kai, you are a principal laboratory scientist here at the treatment facility.
Hi, Bronson. Hi, Crystal. It's nice having you.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. And then, of course, Doug Mawhinney is joining us as well. You are also a principal laboratory scientist out here at the Water Quality Lab at River Mountains, correct?
That's right. I'm in chemistry, and it's good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Carol, let's start with you. Before we start tasting these water samples that are in front of us, can you just tell us a little bit about the flavor profile panel? Like, what is it? Why does SNWA do this?
The Flavor Profile Panel is a trained group of staff who regularly evaluate the taste and smell of our drinking water as part of our routine water quality monitoring program. The Flavor Profile Panel meets weekly to evaluate the taste and aroma of the water that we deliver to our community. The River Mountains Lab began conducting the Flavor Profile Panels in 1999. It was created to ensure that the aesthetic characteristics of our water that we deliver to community are meeting the basic taste and aroma. And actually become an important tool for us to use in evaluating water, similar to the instrumentation in chemistry or microbiological analyses.
That's interesting. This group's been meeting since 1999, so for the past 27 years now. Fascinating that the aroma and taste of the water samples may help you detect developing or potential issues just based on smell and taste. And before we talk about specific flavors and aromas that you guys may detect every week when you're here, we should stress that the water people get from their tap in Southern Nevada is highly treated and meets or surpasses all state and federal safety and quality standards. So, Carol, talk to us a little bit more about some of the specific things you're looking for when smelling and tasting the water. But give us a few examples, what kind of flavors and aromas you might detect and what they could mean.
So when we're analyzing the samples, we start with the aroma to see if there's some sort of gas that the water is giving off or smell and try to characterize that. And then we'll move into more of the taste. So we use an intensity scale from 1 to 7, with 1 being non-detect and kind of 7 being the high intensity of the taste. We were trained in our training for kind of the basic senses, so sour, salty, sweet, bitter. But we have developed our own characteristics for water. We often want it taste sweet in our water. So we've developed our own kind of characteristics. And this helps us notice that if something's a little different. So it's not whether or not we like the taste, it's really trying to provide kind of a quantitative value to if it meets or surpasses like a threshold where we might have an issue. If something does elevate above a specific level, it triggers additional action. So we might go collect additional samples. We might reach out to the treatment process or the distribution system, ask them if there's anything in the distribution system that's going on, if there's differences in treatment processes that we need to look at, or maybe they need to adjust to kind of accommodate. Great example of this is a couple years ago, the panelists detected a geosminy taste, which is indicative of like an algal bloom, and that's where we kind of would get that taste. So we were able to resample and evaluate, and it was right before a little bit of an algal bloom happened around the intake in Lake Mead.
So you caught it early.
Yes.
Just by doing the flavor panel, there was something that was a little bit different. You were able to tie that back to what could potentially be an algal bloom in Lake Mead, and then additional sampling, I think you said, took place. And so, wow, so it's kind of like this process can be maybe a bit of an early warning indicator for things?
For sure.
So we've got some samples actually here in front of us. And Crystal, you want to taste these?
I do. I'm so curious because, I mean, I drink tap water every day, but I've never really thought much about, I don't know, I guess that there's different tastes going on in my water. I just feel like it's just water.
Yeah, and that's, I guess part of what the flavor profile panel here is doing is to make sure that every time you do taste that water coming out of your tap, it just tastes like water. It doesn't taste any different. So, Doug, let me come over to you before we really start tasting this water. Can you tell us, like, where do these samples come from each week?
So we have sampling points all over the valley and also all the purveyors for SNWA. There's over 380 sites that we can select from. An important part of that are all of those locations are outside of homes. We'll never ask to come inside of your house.
So you collect these samples from sampling locations that are accessible to, I assume, water quality technicians that are out there collecting samples?
Yes, yeah.
And you said more than 300? What was that?
There's over 380 sites that we can routinely go to.
And that includes sites in the city of Henderson, in North Las Vegas, city of Las Vegas, Clark County.
All across the valley.
So the samples that you're tasting aren't just like samples that are coming out of freshly treated water from the treatment facility. This is coming from the distribution system and neighborhoods throughout the valley?
Yeah, absolutely. We taste the finished water, and we taste a whole variety of different sites that go all the way out to the far reaches of the distribution system.
And I think one important thing I'm hearing from Doug to emphasize is that this is all outside. If somebody knocks on your door and asks to come in and test your water, turn on your faucet, they're not with the water authority because we would never do that.
Definitely not.
So that's a good safety point. I'm
Yes.
glad you brought that up. Okay, so Carol now is beginning to distribute the samples. They have them in a glass bottle. You can tell that the glass bottle is labeled, and each sample is being poured into our first cup. And we're going to do two different samples here today. And it looks like each of those cups are numbered so we don't confuse our samples. Are we going to be tasting these all at the same time? Or do you go one by one?
We go by one by one. Maybe we'll start with one and then go to two afterwards. So this is your first one.
Is it a good idea to chew gum while you do this?
No.
Oh, okay, just checking.
No.
And
No gum, no perfume. You got to come in here
No
smelling.
perfume.
None of that. No lotion.
Yeah,
So you're going to be ashy
shouldn't
today.
eat or drink 30 minutes before.
Yes,
lots of
you
rules.
really have to plan.
Yeah.
You have to plan for
We have like
you have to prep.
designated like times every week, so it's helpful. Like it's like a routine. So
Yeah.
So Kai, as we get into tasting our first sample here, walk us through what we want to look for and what flavors we should be considering, or do we just use our palate and describe the flavors and aromas that we're sensing?
First, we want to start with smell. Quick, short sniffs called bunny sniffs, and we don't just call them that to be cute. Those small sniffs keep you from overwhelming your nose, which is called olfactory fatigue or nose blindness. What's happening is your sensory receptors are being overwhelmed. But just because that happens, don't panic. Take your hand and smell the inside of your wrist. Your skin is a neutral scent that you're already familiar with. It's like hitting the refresh button for your nose. When you're describing smell, stick to the words that you know. Smell is tied to memory, so really lean into that. You might get fruity, sweet, soapy, or floral aromatics. With our water, we typically get the smells of chlorine or pool. So what are you guys smelling?
I think I smell chlorine.
Yeah, I can pick up a little chlorine. The first thing that came to my mind was just like familiar. Like, it's a familiar smell. There's nothing out of the ordinary here.
And that's exactly how it should be. Those familiar smells are really what keep you tied to your water and you understand what they're coming from. But of course, with your panel members, as you just use those words to describe the water, that help you fill in some of those gaps.
Okay, so I see that there is a form here that you fill out as you're going through that. So when you're doing that, for example, I do see chlorine on here. Would you do that after you smell or do both smell and taste?
You're going to start with smell first. A lot of your tastes are coming from those smells. So you want to do a smell first before you move on to tasting. So do those smells, and then we'll move on to the taste.
All right.
So then with the smell, you also want to give it an intensity number. So from 1 to 7, do you think it's on the lower end or the higher end?
Interesting. So I would say chlorine. I catch a little bit of that because it kind of gave me a little reminder of summertime when I smelled that familiar smell. And I would say that it's a low intensity. I would probably put that at a 2 because I detected it, but it wasn't intense.
I was thinking a 2 as well. And there's maybe like a mineral type smell I get from it a little bit. Low as well, though.
And that's typically the numbers we give to the water. It's very low, just barely detectable. You kind of smell something there, but not quite.
All right, so next we taste.
Yep.
Any specific directions you should give us before we take a sip of our water?
Yep. Just take that very first taste and don't overthink it. So start with your basic taste: sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. Then think about how strong those flavors are. We use a scale from 1 to 7 to describe how it tastes. 1 being, did I really taste anything? And 7 being, wow, that was really punchy.
This sounds so weird with water, but I feel dry. I feel like, did you get that?
I put 2 for dry as well. You know, sometimes when you drink bottled water, there are certain bottled waters where I'm like, ooh, it tastes very crisp, or it tastes a little heavy. But I picked up dry as well for this sample.
And that's exactly where we start getting descriptive. We talk about those mouthfeels, whether it's dry, oily, chalky, or does it make you salivate? Do you feel it right at the back of your tongue? Then we want to talk a little about that balance. Is it smooth and harmonious like a nice, fresh cup of coffee? Or does it feel all over the place?
Yeah, I feel like it's smooth.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Definitely. And
do you and I have the same palate? Is that what's going on?
Maybe. I have to go back to the chlorine because even though I smelled it, I'm not tasting it.
I'm not tasting it either. But metallic is another thing that sort of comes to mind. Very low, but maybe a little sensory of metallic.
And those are the words we like to describe with our water. But overall, the goal is really to describe what you're experiencing in a way that makes sense to you as well as other people. Essentially, all of our customers are tasting the same water that you are. And your panel members can help you describe some of those words if you're not getting all of them. But essentially, at the end of the day, just trust your senses. There's no wrong answers here.
I think of metallic as like a hose bib taste because I grew up drinking hose water.
Drinking from the hose, right?
Did you grow up in Vegas?
Yes.
Yes.
So drinking from the hose. So I equate that to something from my younger years, and it's a metallic flavor tastes more like a hose bib. So that's how I would describe that metallic taste.
Yeah, it's, but it doesn't have the rubber taste of the hose, does it?
Yes.
All right, Crystal, well, we gave it a go with the first sample.
Yep.
Should we actually watch the trained experts? Can we see how you do the flavor profile panel and hear some of the conversation that you have as you take your samples?
So as we were talking, we went through, and so each of these kind of characteristics that we've developed to categorize the taste. So we've gone through, assigned like an intensity, and any descriptor words that we have acquired over that. And then as a team, we kind of compile all of our results together. So we could have various intensities or descriptors. So we come up with a consensus for the intensity. So we can just go through this first sample. So Kai will tell me what her intensities for these different characteristics. And we'll just kind of go down for data recording efficiency.
To start with TIA, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2.
And do you have any descriptors?
Yep. For TIA, I describe it as pool. Other mouthfeels, astringent. My mouth feels a little bit dry there. For metallic, hose bib, similar to what you got earlier. Mineral, TDS, so total dissolved solids. And then finally, the aftertaste is dry.
Okay, and Doug?
So 3, 3, 2, 1, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2.
And descriptors?
For TIA, I have chlorine. For other mouthfeels, I have saline and astringent. For chlorine, I have pool. For metallic, I have steel. For mineral, I have TDS. For others, I have vinyl. And aftertaste is dry.
Super taster.
Okay.
Yeah, so there were different descriptors there. Also, you had a lot of 1s and 2s, Kai. Doug had some more 2s and 3s. Is that typically normal when you go through these, since you each have kind of your own unique palette?
Yeah, so that is pretty normal. That's ultimately the goal of compiling. We're going to go through and make sure that our scores are somewhat similar. And part of our 60-hour-long training is that we are essentially going to calibrate to each other.
We heard TIA mentioned a couple of times. Can you just describe what TIA is for our listeners?
Total intensity of aroma.
Total intensity of aroma. So that's the smell portion of the tasting. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we got from the bunny sniffs.
See, now when I marked down my bunny sniffs, I was putting that under the chlorine for taste. So obviously a novice over here and not trained in the proper techniques.
You're not a sommelier.
I'm not a sommelier.
You did great for your first time.
Thanks, Carol. All right, so we will move on now to sample number 2. Is that the completion of the process?
Yes, so essentially we'll do the same we'll first start with the measuring the total intensity of aroma, and then once we've got that, we'll go into attributing the different characteristics of flavor.
Excellent.
I have a question too. What is the purpose of having 2 different samples here when you do it? And do you always do 2 or 4?
It depends on how many we collect during the week. So we try to have 2 to 3 samples per flavor profile panel. And we assign those kind of based on our routine monitoring. So we'll just randomly pick them throughout the entire southern Nevada region. Give me your 2s.
Do you want to fight in the next one? You got a green vegetation.
Do you want to fight?
Yeah, so let's discuss it last time. Let's discuss the next one.
Green vegetation.
Yeah, she got some green vegetation notes. And typically, if she gets a note that we didn't pick up, it's good for us to retaste it and to see if we can also get that note. Not to necessarily change our mind, but just see, oh, maybe I missed that. I didn't taste on the first.
Well, and I was curious if you ever, as a group, have major discrepancies. Has there ever been somebody that's like, no, I got a 6 out of that, and you're like, no, I got a 2?
I don't think we've ever had a major disagreement because of all the training we've been through and calibrations.
All right, so we'll move on to our second sample.
So we're smelling first.
Doing the bunny sniffs.
Bunny sniffs.
Did you swirl first?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
I did forget. Really different from...
A little bit. Just a little bit. I mean, it's a different intensity for the smell.
Yeah, I would think, for me, a 1.
Yeah, and I'm going to put my total intensity for the smell at a 2.
I'm not sure what I'm smelling, though.
Well, we don't have to identify that. Now comes the taste.
Okay.
I'll be honest, Crystal, it tastes the same.
Actually, I think it tastes smoother and less dry. Less dry. I would be terrible at this.
And oftentimes there isn't much variation. But that's the goal. We don't want a lot of variation in the taste and quality and the aesthetic characters of the water. We want to deliver a consistent product to our customers.
Interesting.
And that sample is actually from the North Las Vegas service area.
So we tasted North Las Vegas water, and we tasted water directly out of the treatment facility.
Correct.
Nice.
And they were pretty consistent.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. All right.
So we mentioned earlier that our tap water meets or surpasses all state and federal standards, and I think that's really important for people to understand. Bronson and I have talked about this before. We drink the tap water all the time. We both grew up drinking it. In fact, I think we distinguished here today that we drank out of the hose as well as kids. And so we're super used to the taste of our tap water. But to be honest, we get a lot of feedback from people in the community that don't like the taste of our water, or they compare it to another place that they moved here from, and it doesn't taste good here compared to where I came from. So Doug, can you talk about what people might actually be tasting at home and how they can improve the flavor if they don't really care for the taste?
Sure, absolutely. I think the number one driving force in the taste of our water is the mineral content. It's a Rocky Mountain mineral-rich water, and it's hard water, so there's a lot of calcium and magnesium. That has a certain flavor characteristic to it, but there's no health effects. In fact, it's very healthy for you. Minerals help with hydration and just overall health.
What do you think people, when they taste it at home, is it the minerals you think they're getting?
Yeah, absolutely. From just friends and folks that I know from outside of work, that's the number one thing that I hear is about the hard water.
What can they do to improve the taste?
So there's also some aroma to the water. So that's the chlorine. The chlorine is added to keep the water safe when it's traveling in a distribution system. And so that's the smell a lot of people smell. What I like to do is I take a pitcher of water and I put it in the refrigerator. I let it sit overnight, get chilled, and some of that chlorine and those other off aromas have a chance to dissipate and degas from the sample, and you have a nice glass of water in the morning. Some people like to put a slice of citrus into the water.
Yeah, and then some people even have like water filters on their fridge dispensers, you know, those active carbon filters, and that also helps to just improve the aesthetics of the water, right? A little bit with the taste.
Yeah, if you let it sit overnight, the chlorine smell kind of dissipates. The carbon filter just gets rid of it quicker.
So Doug mentioned kind of the mineral content, the calcium and magnesium, and that those can actually be healthy for you, right? I mean, that's part of the minerals that are electrolytes that are in the water. If you had to describe that taste, like how do you do that as experts?
I think the best way to describe it is adding an electrolyte packet from any sort of brand and adding to a nice amount of water, like a liter or so. And that's the best way to describe that hard water taste.
Yeah, where it's kind of watered down, the electrolyte, so it's not super flavorful, but it's there and
exactly.
present.
It's something that you can notice, but it's not something that bothers you. You just know it's there.
I like that response, Kai. I think that's helpful for our listeners. Let's talk a little bit about bottled water, because I'm sure that you taste bottled water from time to time too, right? I mean, we all drink a little bottled water from here to there for convenience. In your expertise, is bottled water safer than tap water, Kai?
That's a really common question, and I try to meet people where they're at with it. What I usually like to share is a little bit of context so they can make a more informed decision. From a taste perspective, a lot of bottled waters use reverse osmosis or carbon filtration, which can remove the mineral taste or that chlorine taste. But something a lot of people don't know is that about 40% of bottled water actually starts as municipal tap water, and then it gets further filtered and then packaged. And then when people talk about safety, I try to explain that both bottled water and tap water are regulated. They're just regulated a little bit differently. Tap water is regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency under the Safe Drinking Water Act, and public water systems have to test it very frequently, sometimes even daily for large systems, for a wide range of contaminants. There's a strong transparency component to tap water. We publish the Consumer Conference Report yearly, and next year we'll be publishing it twice a year. So people can actually see exactly what's in their water and how it compares to federal standards. Bottled water, on the other hand, is regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. They typically test less frequently, and they test in batches or lots. So if you have a case of water, they'll only test 1 or 2 of those bottles, whereas for us, we will test every one of these samples. And most people don't have an easy way of looking up these results. Those results tend to be hard to access. And I don't want to say any water is universally safer than the other or one's better, but I do emphasize that tap water is closely monitored and highly regulated. There's also the cost factor to it, which really surprises people. Tap water costs less than 2 cents per gallon, while bottled water can range from anywhere from $1 to $8 per gallon. And over time, that really adds up. Some estimates show bottled water users spend hundreds to even thousands of dollars per year per person. So what I usually tell people is, if you like bottled water for convenience, keep a couple on hand, especially for emergency preparedness. But overall, everyday tap water is safe, highly regulated, cost-effective, and environmentally friendly.
All right, so the water has a taste, but that taste is not necessarily related to the safety. The water that is coming out of your tap is safe to drink. And we test, how many samples do we collect annually here in Southern Nevada?
I think we collect around 65,000 samples per year, but the number of analyses is around 350,000 analyses completed by the River Mountains Laboratory per year.
We spent a lot of time today talking about smell and taste, but there is one other thing that crops up that we happen to hear about is what the water looks like. So sometimes people get cloudy or water that looks a little milky. Sometimes that happens a little more in summertime because we are supplementing the water with groundwater. Can you explain what that means when somebody gets cloudy water and what they should do to check it out?
A lot of the time, people report milky, Sprite-like water, and that's just little tiny air bubbles trapped in the water. So as it comes out of the well, it aerates that water and comes out looking milky or white. An easy way to tell is just collect a glass of water, let it sit out, and usually within 30 seconds to a couple minutes, all those air bubbles should dissipate. And then it has no impact on the safety or internal pipes or anything like that. It's just there.
And it doesn't even change the taste of the water. It just looks that way for a few minutes.
A few moments.
All right, so we talked about aroma, we talked about taste, we talked about clarity of that water as well. What should somebody do if somebody ends up using tap water at their home and they're noticing that maybe the tap water does have an aroma to it or something that alerts them that they just feel is off? Doug, any tips for our listeners on like what action they should do in that rare occasion?
Sure. If you're over at the sink and get your glass of water and you notice an aroma, you might want to take that glass of water and walk into a different room. Let your nose relax and then take another sniff of the water and see what it smells like. More than likely, the smell's coming from the drain.
The drain of the sink.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's traps in the sink, people have garbage disposals, and those all need maintenance. Especially if you have a room in the house with like a bathroom that's not used very often, the traps can dry out. You need to run some water into the tub or to the sink every once in a while, keep the plumbing healthy.
So everything that you guys have shared with us is really good advice for everybody at home, and understanding where their water comes from and all the processes that you guys do to make sure that our water is good and reliable and safe. There is a lot of information out there about common household plumbing issues, like Doug was just talking about, that could create problems at home. Carol, where can people find more helpful tips to help them troubleshoot some of the more common issues?
People can turn to visit SNWA.com or LVVWD.com. We have a frequently asked questions page that goes over some of like the odor or colors that people might see in their interior plumbing. And for water quality, it is June, so every public water systems consumer confidence report has hit the websites, hit their mailbox, and that's a good source to check out the water quality for their water.
Great advice. Those water quality reports for this year are now out. Visit your water provider's website in order to review all of the efforts that go into protecting your water supply. Doug and Kai and Carol, thank you so much for letting us and our listeners participate with the Water Flavor Panel and learning about really this extra step that we go to just to make sure that our water is of the highest quality.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us. See you in the next one.